Marcus Chun hadn't slept properly in 3 years. Not since the accident that took his wife and unborn child, leaving him alone in a penthouse that felt more like a mausoleum than a home. At 34, he built an empire in tech, but success felt hollow when there was no one to share it with. He went through the motions, board meetings, charity galas, investment calls, all while feeling like he was watching his life from behind thick glass. His household staff had learned to tread carefully around him. They knew the rules: maintain distance, work efficiently, and above all, don't try to fix him. He'd gone through 7 housekeepers in 2 years before his estate manager, Patricia, suggested someone different. "She's young, but she's thorough," Patricia had said. "Single mother. She needs the work, and honestly, Mr. Chin, she needs the stability. But I should warn you, she has a daughter. 2 years old. She has reliable childcare during the day, but occasionally there might be emergencies." Marcus had nearly refused on the spot. A child in his home? Laughter and tiny footsteps where there should have been his own child's? But something in Patricia's eyes stopped him. Perhaps it was exhaustion, or perhaps it was the therapist's voice in his head reminding him that isolation wasn't healing, but he'd agreed to a trial period. Elena Martinez arrived on a Monday morning in October, her resume modest but her references glowing. She was 27, with warm brown eyes that held both determination and wariness. During the interview, she sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, answering his questions with a quiet professionalism that somehow didn't feel obsequious. "I understand you value privacy, Mr. Chen," she'd said. "I'm not here to intrude on your life. I'm here to make your home function smoothly, so you can focus on what matters to you." What matters to me? He'd thought bitterly. If only I knew what that was anymore. He hired her. The first month passed uneventfully. Elena was exactly as advertised, efficient, unobtrusive, and remarkably perceptive. She learned his routines without being told. Coffee ready at 6:30, exactly the way he liked it. His gym clothes laid out. The newspaper positioned at the precise angle on the breakfast table. She anticipated his needs before he voiced them, yet maintained an invisible presence. Marcus found himself noticing small details. How she hummed softly while arranging flowers in the foyer. The way she always paused to straighten the photograph of his late wife, Sarah, with gentle reverence rather than treating it as just another surface to dust. Once, he'd caught her standing in front of it, her expression thoughtful and sad. She never asked questions about his life, never offered unwanted sympathy, and that was perhaps what he appreciated most. Then came the incident that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Elena's phone rang during her shift. Marcus was in his home office, door open while he reviewed quarterly reports. He heard her answer, heard her voice shift from professional calm to barely contained panic. "What do you mean she's sick? How high is the fever?" Yes, I'm coming right now." She appeared in his doorway moments later, pale and trembling. "Mr. Chun, I'm so sorry, but there's an emergency with my daughter. The daycare says she has a high fever, and I need to." "Go," he said immediately. Family comes first. The gratitude in her eyes was almost painful to witness. She was gone within minutes. She returned the next morning looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she began, but he waved her off. "Is your daughter all right?" "Yes, thank you. It was just a virus. But my regular backup fell through," and she hesitated. "Mr. Chen, I know this is highly unusual, but would you consider allowing me to bring my daughter here? Just for today. My childcare situation should be resolved by tomorrow. She'll stay in the staff room. You won't even know she's here." Marcus should have said no. It violated his carefully constructed boundaries. But he found himself nodding before he could overthink it. "Thank you," Elena breathed. "Thank you so much. I promise you won't regret this." That afternoon, Elena returned with her daughter, Lily. Marcus happened to be passing through the kitchen when they arrived. He caught a glimpse of a tiny girl with dark curls and enormous eyes, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. Their eyes met for just a moment before Marcus retreated to his office, his heart hammering in his chest. She looked so much like he'd imagined his own daughter might have looked. Same age, same curious expression. The grief hit him like a physical blow, and he spent the next hour staring unseeing at his computer screen. But he didn't hear any disruption. No crying, no running footsteps. Whatever Elena was doing, she was keeping her promise. Over the following weeks, there were 3 more emergencies. Each time, Elena called, apologetic and stressed. Each time, Marcus found himself agreeing to let her bring Lily. And each time, true to her word, the child remained invisible to him. Until the day he decided to test Elena's integrity. It started with a casual conversation he'd overheard between his building's doorman and a delivery person. Yeah, these rich guys, they're all the same. Act all high and mighty, but they don't know who's really running their lives. The help could rob them blind, and they'd never notice. Marcus had bristled at the characterization, but it planted a seed of doubt. Not about Elena specifically. She'd given him no reason for suspicion, but about his own vigilance. Had grief made him careless? Was he so wrapped up in his own pain that he'd become an easy mark? He thought about Elena. Access to his home, his belongings, his private spaces. Her impeccable timing, her uncanny ability to anticipate his needs. Was it genuine confidence? Or was she cataloging his routines for some other purpose? The thought felt disloyal, even paranoid. But once planted, he couldn't shake it. So Marcus hatched a plan that he would later recognize as born from isolation and suspicion rather than wisdom. He would test her. Nothing elaborate, just a simple scenario to see how she behaved when she thought she was unobserved. He would pretend to fall asleep in his study, perhaps leave his wallet visible, see if anything went missing or if she behaved differently. It seemed harmless enough, just due diligence for a man whose wealth made him a target. Looking back, Marcus would realize this was the moment when everything began to change. Not the test itself, but what it revealed. Not about Elena's character, but about the walls he'd built around his heart and what it would take to finally bring them down. Marcus chose a Friday afternoon for his experiment, a day when Elena mentioned she'd need to bring Lily again. He felt a twinge of guilt as he set the stage, but pushed it aside. He was simply being prudent, he told himself. Due diligence wasn't the same as distrust. He positioned himself in his study, a room lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and dominated by a large mahogany desk. The leather chair was deliberately comfortable, and he'd settled into it countless times for genuine naps during stressful periods. Making this look natural wouldn't be difficult. On the desk, he placed several test items: his wallet, containing $500 in cash, his Rolex watch, a wedding gift from Sarah that he couldn't bear to wear but kept close, and a folder marked confidential, containing dummy financial documents he'd printed that morning. Nothing so obvious as leaving jewelry scattered about, but enough to tempt someone who was looking to exploit his trust. Elena arrived at her usual time, Lily's small hand clasped in hers. Marcus watched from the upstairs hallway as they entered. The little girl wore a yellow sundress and tiny sneakers, her dark curls pulled into 2 puffs on either side of her head. She carried her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy, he'd overheard Elena call it, and looked around with that particular brand of wonder only toddlers possess. "Remember, Mija," Elena said softly, kneeling to her daughter's level. "Quiet voices today, okay? Mr. Chin is working, and we need to be very respectful of his space." Lily nodded solemnly, pressing her finger to her lips. "SHHHH. That's right. You can play in the staff room with your toys, and Mama will check on you all the time, okay?" Another nod. Elena kissed her daughter's forehead, and Marcus found himself looking away from the tenderness of the moment. It felt intrusive to watch, even as he was preparing to spy on them in a different way. He gave them 30 minutes to settle in before executing his plan. He made enough noise coming down the stairs that Elena would hear him, then headed to his study. Right on cue, she appeared from the kitchen. "Good afternoon, Mr. Chen. Can I get you anything?" "No. Thank you, Elena. I have some reading to do. Please don't disturb me for the next few hours." "Of course." He closed the study door, leaving it slightly ajar, enough to hear anyone approach, but suggesting he wanted privacy. Then he settled into his chair, arranged himself in what he hoped looked like a natural sleeping position, and waited. The first hour was excruciating. His leg cramped. His neck developed a crick. He became acutely aware of every sound in the house, the distant hum of the vacuum, the whisper of Elena's footsteps as she moved through the upper rooms, the occasional soft murmur of her voice, presumably talking to Lily. Nothing happened. The second hour was worse. Doubt crept in. What was he even doing? Elena had been nothing but trustworthy. This elaborate charade felt increasingly foolish and, worse, cruel. She was a single mother working hard to provide for her child, and here he was, playing games to catch her in some imagined betrayal. He was about to abandon the whole thing when he heard it, the soft creak of the study door opening wider. Marcus kept his breathing steady and even, fighting the urge to tense up. Footsteps approached his desk, light, careful steps. Elena was in the room. This was it. The moment that would confirm whether his suspicions had any merit or whether he'd been letting paranoia poison a perfectly good working relationship. He heard her pause near the desk. Heard what might have been a soft intake of breath. Then nothing. Just silence and stillness. What was she doing? Looking at the wallet? Reading the documents? Slipping the watch into her pocket? Then he heard something unexpected. Another set of footsteps. Tiny ones. "Mama?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "Sho, baby. Mr. Chen is sleeping," Elena murmured. Sleeping? The word held that particular tone of fascination toddlers have with new concepts. "Yes, sweetheart. Come on, let's let him rest." But instead of retreating footsteps, Marcus heard the small shuffle of Lily moving closer. His skin prickled with awareness. The child was approaching him. "Mama," he called. There was a pause. Then Elena's voice, impossibly gentle. "Maybe a little, Mija. The air conditioning is quite strong in here." What happened next sent Marcus's carefully controlled breathing into near chaos. He felt something soft and warm being draped over him, a blanket. Elena was covering him with a blanket. "There," she whispered to Lily. "Now he'll be more comfortable." But Lily wasn't finished. Marcus heard her move even closer, felt the presence of the tiny person near his chair. Then, with the fearless affection of a 2-year-old who hadn't yet learned that the world might not love her back, she patted his hand. The touch was butterfly-light, gentle, sweet. "Night-night," Lily whispered. Marcus's chest constricted. The simple gesture, so pure and caring, was almost too much to bear. He maintained his facade, through sheer force of will. "Come on, sweetheart," Elena said softly. "Let's give Mr. Chen his privacy." "But Mama," Lily's voice held a tremulous quality. "He's sad." The question hung in the air. Marcus forgot to breathe entirely. "What makes you say that, baby?" Elena's voice was careful, curious. "He looks like you," Lily said with the blunt honesty of childhood. "When you cry at night, that kind of sad." The silence that followed was profound. Marcus felt exposed in a way his test had never been intended to reveal. This child, barely more than a baby herself, had seen through his carefully maintained walls to the grief he thought he'd hidden so well. "Yes, Mija," Elena finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "I think maybe he is sad. But we can't fix everyone's sadness. Sometimes we can only be kind." "We be kind," Lily agreed readily. "That's right. Now come, let's." But Lily had other plans. Before Elena could stop her, before Marcus could prepare himself, the little girl did something that shattered his carefully constructed test entirely. She climbed onto his lap. The action was so unexpected, so completely out of the script he'd imagined, that Marcus nearly gave himself away. Lily arranged herself against his chest with the confidence of a child who expected to be welcomed, who expected to be held. She was warm and solid, smelling of baby shampoo and something sweet, graham crackers maybe. Lily. Elena's whisper was urgent, mortified. Oh my God, sweetie, no.
Come here right now.
Mr. Chen doesn't, we can't. She was trying to extract her daughter without waking him, Marcus realized. Trying to undo this boundary violation as quickly and quietly as possible, probably terrified that she'd lose her job. But Lily had her own agenda. She snuggled closer, tucked her head under Marcus's chin, and wrapped one small arm as far around him as it would reach. Then she pressed Mr. Hoppy, her precious stuffed rabbit, against Marcus's chest. For him, she whispered to her mother. So he not sad. Baby, we need to. He need hugs, mama. Like me when I sad. Elena made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Sweetheart, please. We have to go before. That's when Lily turned her face up toward Marcus's, close enough that he could feel her breath on his cheek. And in a voice filled with all the innocent wisdom of a child who loved easily and completely, she whispered 4 words that changed everything. I love you, Daddy. Marcus's heart stopped. The word landed like a bomb in the quiet room.
Daddy.
She'd called him Daddy. Lily. Elena's voice was stricken now, horrified. Oh, honey, no. This isn't, he's not. She was lifting Lily away, finally, pulling her daughter back. Marcus heard her distress, heard how quickly her professional composure had crumbled. I'm so sorry, she was whispering, though whether to him or to Lily, he couldn't tell. Baby, Mr. Chen isn't, we don't. But Mama, he needs us. Lily's voice rose slightly, confused by her mother's urgency. He needs love. Like you said. You said everybody needs love. Yes, but Elena's voice cracked. That's not how it works, Mija. We can't just, we're not his family. This is his house and we work here and… Marcus couldn't maintain the pretense anymore. The test was over. The walls were crumbling, and there was no containing this moment. His eyes opened to find Elena clutching Lily, both of them frozen in shock at his sudden movement. Elena's face was a portrait of absolute horror. She'd gone pale, her eyes wide and shining with unshed tears. Lily, on the other hand, brightened immediately. You awake, she said happily, reaching for him again. Elena pulled her back. Mr. Chen, I am so incredibly sorry. I don't know where she got that, I didn't tell her to. The words tumbled out in a panic. I'll pack our things right now. I understand, completely, if you want us to leave immediately. I'll refund this week's pay. I'm just so… Elena. Marcus's voice came out rough, strained. Stop. She fell silent, clutching Lily tighter, blinking rapidly against tears. Marcus sat up fully, running a hand over his face. The watch was still on the desk. The wallet untouched. The folder exactly where he'd left it. And Elena was standing in front of him, terrified of losing her job, because her daughter had shown him more genuine kindness than he'd experienced in 3 years. The test had revealed something, all right, just not what he'd expected. The 3 of them remained frozen in that moment, Elena holding Lily like a shield against the world, Marcus struggling to find words that wouldn't come, and Lily looking between the 2 adults with growing confusion at their strange behavior. Mr. Chen, please. Elena tried again, her voice trembling. She didn't mean anything by it. She's just a baby. She doesn't understand. How long have you known? Marcus interrupted, his voice still rough with suppressed emotion. Elena blinked. I'm sorry that I was sad. How long have you known? The question clearly wasn't what she'd expected. She shifted Lily's weight on her hip, uncertainty crossing her face. I don't know what you mean. Your daughter said I look like you do when you cry at night. That I have that same kind of sadness. Marcus stood slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements that might frighten them. So, I'm asking, how long have you known? Elena's throat worked. She looked down, then back up, something shifting in her expression, a decision being made. Since the first day, she said quietly. I saw it the first day. The honesty of it landed like a stone in still water. No deflection, no professional distance. Just truth. The photograph in the foyer, she continued, meeting his eyes. The woman in it. She was beautiful. And the date on the frame. She trailed off, the implication clear. Sarah had died 3 years ago this past spring. I recognized the look in your eyes because I've seen it in my own mirror. Different circumstances, maybe, but the same emptiness. And you said nothing. It wasn't an accusation, just an observation. What could I say? Elena asked softly. You hired me to clean your home, Mr. Chin, not to clean your wounds. And anyway, grief isn't something that can be fixed by a stranger offering platitudes. It just has to be survived. The wisdom in her words struck him. She was 27, but she'd clearly known loss herself. Why Daddy? Marcus asked, looking at Lily, who had her thumb in her mouth now, watching this adult exchange with solemn eyes. Where did that come from? Elena's face flushed with embarrassment. There's this thing she does lately. She's at the age where she's noticing that other kids have fathers and she. Elena stopped, took a breath. She picks them sometimes. Men at the grocery store, at the park. Anyone who shows the smallest kindness. She'll point and say that could be my daddy, or maybe he's my daddy. I've tried to explain, but she's too. Concepts like absent father don't really compute. Where is he? Marcus asked. Her father? Texas, last I heard. He left when I was 6 months pregnant. Said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he'd made a mistake. Elena's voice was matter-of-fact, but Marcus could hear the old hurt underneath. I haven't heard from him since. And before you ask, no, I don't need child support, and yes, I'm doing fine on my own. Lily and I were a team. Marcus nodded slowly. He understood about teams of two. He and Sarah had been a team like that once. Lily chose that moment to pipe up, her thumb leaving her mouth with a pop. You have sad eyes, she told Marcus seriously. But nice eyes. Like Mr. Hoppy. Despite everything, Marcus felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Like your rabbit? He was sad too, until Mama fixed him. Lily held up the worn stuffed animal, and Marcus could see now that it had been extensively repaired. New stitches where limbs had been reattached, carefully patched holes in the fabric. He got hurt, but then he got better. You get better too, okay? The simple prescription, delivered with absolute confidence, made something crack in Marcus's chest. This tiny human, who knew nothing about him except that he'd let her mother bring her to work, who had no reason to care about a stranger's pain, had decided with the full force of her toddler conviction that he needed to be healed. Lily, he said carefully, can I tell you something? The little girl nodded, eyes wide. I did have a daughter once. She never got to be born, but I think about her every day. And I think she would have been a lot like you. Kind and brave and generous. Elena's breath caught. Mr. Chin, you don't have to. Her name was going to be Emma, Marcus continued, the words flowing now like a dam had broken. He hadn't spoken her name aloud in over a year. Emma Rose Chin. And her mother's name was Sarah. They died together 3 years ago. A car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light, and just like that, my whole future disappeared. Lily reached out and patted his cheek, exactly as she'd patted his hand earlier. That's very sad, she said solemnly. Yes, Marcus agreed, his vision blurring. It is very sad. But you're not alone, Lily declared with certainty. You have Mama and me now. Lily, sweetheart, Elena said gently. That's not how it works. Mr. Chun has his own life, and we have ours. We're here to help keep his house clean. But he needs hugs, Lily insisted with the stubbornness of a child who knew her truth. And you give good hugs, Mama. And I give good hugs. And everybody needs hugs when they're sad. You said. Elena looked at Marcus helplessly, clearly mortified by her daughter's refusal to understand appropriate boundaries. I'm sorry. I've been trying to teach her about empathy, but she's taken it to heart a little too literally. Marcus surprised himself by laughing. It came out rusty, unpracticed, but genuine. Don't apologize.
She's right, actually.
I do need hugs. I just forgot for a while that I did. He looked at the desk, at the wallet and watch and folder that suddenly seemed ridiculous, evidence of a test that had revealed all the wrong things. Or perhaps all the right things, just not the way he'd expected. Elena, he said, I need to confess something. I wasn't actually asleep. Her brow furrowed. What? Just now.
When you came in.
I was pretending. The admission tasted bitter. I was testing you. I wanted to see what you'd do when you thought I wasn't watching. The color drained from Elena's face as understanding dawned. Her eyes darted to the desk, to the carefully placed items, and then back to his face. Something flickered in her expression. Hurt, then anger, then a kind of weary resignation. I see, she said quietly. And did I pass your test, Mr. Chin? The question was pointed, and he deserved the edge in her voice.
You did, he said.
With flying colors. You covered me with a blanket. Your daughter offered me her most precious possession and called me daddy. And all I did was prove that grief has turned me into someone suspicious and small and unworthy of that kind of simple kindness. Elena was quiet for a long moment, adjusting Lily on her hip. The little girl had gone back to sucking her thumb, sensing the serious tone between the adults even if she didn't understand the words. I should be angry, Elena finally said, that you test me like that after I've worked here for months without giving you any reason to doubt my integrity. You should, Marcus agreed. I wouldn't blame you if you quit right now. But I'm not angry, she continued, surprising him, because I understand. When you've been hurt badly enough, when you've lost everything that mattered, you start seeing threats everywhere. You build walls to keep out the pain, but those walls also keep out everything else.
Trust.
Connection.
Joy.
Even the possibility of joy. She met his eyes directly, and he saw a strength there he'd underestimated. I've done it too, she admitted. After Lily's father left, I was convinced every man was just waiting to abandon me. I saw betrayal coming from every direction. It made me hard for a while, suspicious. But then this little one arrived. She bounced Lily gently, earning a giggle, and I realized I had a choice. I could teach her to live behind walls, or I could teach her to be brave enough to care anyway.
To trust anyway.
To love anyway, even when it's risky. That's terrifying, Marcus said honestly. Yes, Elena agreed.
It absolutely is.
But the alternative is worse. The alternative is existing without living. And Mr. Chin, she paused, then made a visible decision. Marcus, if you don't mind me saying so, you're existing, but you're not living. The truth of it hit him square in the chest. She was right. He'd been going through motions for 3 years, maintaining his business empire, managing his properties, attending his appointments. All of it hollow. All of it empty. I don't know how to anymore, he admitted, the words barely a whisper. I don't know how to live in a world where they're not in it. You learn, Elena said simply. Little by little. Step by step. And you let people help you, even when you're not sure you deserve help. Lily chose that moment to extend her arms toward Marcus, making the universal toddler signal for pick me up. Elena started to pull her back, but Marcus stepped forward. May I? He asked. Elena hesitated, then nodded. If you want to. Marcus took Lily carefully, and the little girl settled against him like she belonged there. Mr. Hoppy squished between them. She patted his shoulder reassuringly. See, she said to her mother. He's good at hugs too. He just forgot. Standing there, holding this child who decided entirely on her own that he needed saving, Marcus felt something shift. Not healing. Healing would take longer, would be harder. But perhaps the first crack in the ice that had encased his heart for 3 years. "Thank you," he said to Lily, "for reminding me." "You're welcome, Daddy," she said automatically, then looked at her mother.
Oops.
"I forgot it." "It's okay, baby," Elena said gently, but she looked at Marcus nervously. Marcus met her eyes over Lily's head. "Actually," he heard himself say, "maybe it doesn't have to be wrong. Maybe we could try something different." Elena's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" And that's when Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself, one that would change all of their lives in ways none of them could yet imagine. Marcus carefully set Lily down, and she immediately plopped onto the floor to play with Mr. Hoppy, creating an elaborate story involving a brave rabbit and a castle made of couch cushions. The adults stood in awkward silence, the weight of Marcus's half-finished thought hanging between them. "What I mean is," Marcus began, then stopped. This was harder than hostile takeovers or board presentations. "I've been thinking lately that this house is too big for one person. That maybe I've been isolating myself when what I need is connection. Purpose beyond just making money." Elena's expression was guarded. "Mr. Chin. Marcus, please. After what just happened, I think we're past formalities." "Marcus," she corrected, though the name seemed to sit uncomfortably on her tongue. "If you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, I need you to be very careful about what you say next." He nodded, appreciating her directness. "I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate, Elena. I'm suggesting an arrangement that might benefit both of us." "An arrangement." Her voice was flat, protective. "Not that kind of arrangement," he said quickly. "Let me explain properly. Please sit down." Elena remained standing, Lily now humming at their feet as Mr. Hoppy apparently climbed the cushion mountain. The message was clear. She would hear him out, but she wasn't going to be comfortable about it. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, searching for the right words. "This house has 6 bedrooms. I use 1. There's a full guest suite on the 2nd floor with its own entrance, its own kitchen, completely separate from the main living areas. It sits empty except when Patricia comes for quarterly reviews." He watched Elena's face carefully as he continued. "You're paying rent somewhere, I assume? And childcare during the day? And dealing with the constant stress of juggling a toddler's needs with work demands." "That's my responsibility," Elena said quietly. "Not yours." "I know. But what if it didn't have to be so hard? What if you and Lily moved into that guest suite, rent-free, and in exchange, you continued doing what you're already doing, managing the house, but with the flexibility to be with your daughter when she needs you?" Elena's eyes narrowed. "And what else?" "Nothing else," Marcus said firmly. "Elena, I'm not propositioning you. I'm not looking for a relationship or anything like that. I'm just," he gestured helplessly, "I'm just tired of being alone in this tomb. And maybe your daughter is right. Maybe I do need reminders that life exists, that joy exists. Even if it's someone else's life, someone else's joy." "That's a lot to put on a 2-year-old, Elena pointed out. "You're right. Which is why I'm putting it on you instead. I'm asking if you'd consider this arrangement for your sake, not mine. Better housing, financial security, less stress. And in return, I get a house that feels less empty. That's it." Elena was quiet for a long moment, processing. "You realize how strange this sounds? How many ways this could go wrong?" "I do," Marcus admitted. "And I'll understand if you say no. But Elena, I watched you today. I watched how you cared for me when you thought I was sleeping, not because I was your employer, but because you're a kind person who saw someone who might be cold and brought them a blanket. That's who you are. And I hope that I used to be someone like that too. Before." His voice caught on the word. "Before Sarah died. Before Emma never got to be born. Before the world turned gray and flat and meaningless. I don't want to stay the person I've become, he continued. Suspicious. Isolated. Testing people's loyalty instead of just trusting them. Maybe having you and Lily here, having life here, maybe that's a step toward finding my way back. You need therapy, not a maid with a toddler, Elena said, but her voice was gentler now. I have therapy.
Twice a week.
It helps, but it's not enough. Dr. Morrison keeps telling me I need to rebuild connections, to let people in. But how do you do that when you've forgotten how? When everyone you meet wants something from you, business connections, investment opportunities, donations to their causes? He looked at Lily, who had apparently finished her story and was now carefully arranging Mr. Hoppy for a nap on the cushions, tucking him in with a throw pillow. She doesn't want anything from me, Marcus said quietly. She just decided I needed a hug. When was the last time anyone cared about me that simply, that unconditionally? Elena's expression softened. Marcus, I appreciate what you're saying. And I understand that you're hurting. But I have to protect my daughter. I have to make sure that any decision I make is about her welfare first. As you should, Marcus agreed immediately. So, let's talk about her welfare. What does Lily need most? Stability, Elena answered without hesitation. Consistency. A home where she feels safe. Time with me, her mother, without me being constantly stressed about making ends meet. And could this arrangement provide that? Elena bit her lip. Maybe. But Marcus, what happens when you're ready to move on with your life? When you meet someone, when you want your space back? Where does that leave us? It was a fair question, and Marcus had an answer ready. We put it in writing. A proper contract with a family attorney. You'd have rights as a tenant, security, a timeline. Minimum 1 year, renewable if we both agree. And if either of us wants to end the arrangement, you'd have 3 months' notice and a relocation allowance to help you get settled somewhere else. This isn't charity, Elena. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement between adults. You've really thought this through, Elena said, surprise evident in her voice. I thought it through while you were putting that blanket over me, Marcus admitted. And while Lily was calling me daddy and offering me her rabbit, I thought about how empty this house is, how empty I am, and how maybe we could help each other fill those empty spaces a little. We barely know each other. You know I like my coffee black, with 1 sugar. That I read the Times but prefer the Journal for business news. That I run every morning at 6 and that I avoid the 3rd floor hallway because Sarah's studio is up there and I can't bring myself to clean it out. Marcus's voice was steady. And I know you hum when you arrange flowers. That you eat lunch at 12:30 on it. That you're left-handed and you always make sure my wife's photograph is perfectly straight. We know the small things. Maybe that's enough to start. Elena looked down at her daughter, who had noticed the adults had stopped talking and was watching them with curious eyes. Mama, what's wrong? Lily asked. Nothing's wrong, baby. Mama's just thinking. Thinking is good, Lily declared, then turned to Marcus. Are you thinking too? I am, Marcus confirmed. What about? About how this big house might be nicer with more people in it. Lily's face lit up. We could live here? In the pretty house? Elena shot Marcus a look that clearly said, see what you've started? But she knelt beside her daughter. Maybe, Mija. But we need to talk about it first, okay? Nothing is decided. But I like it here, Lily said, her lower lip starting to tremble. It smells nice. And it has the big windows. And she looked at Marcus. And he needs us, Mama. You said people who need help should get help. I did say that, Elena admitted. She stood up, facing Marcus with the full force of a mother's protective instincts in her eyes. Can I have time to think about it? To really consider what this would mean? Of course. Take as long as you need. And I want that contract you mentioned. In writing, before we make any decisions. I need to know exactly what we'd be agreeing to. Absolutely. I'll have my attorney draft something by Monday. No obligation. You can review it, suggest changes, walk away if it doesn't feel right. Elena nodded slowly. Okay. But Marcus, I need you to promise me something. Name it. If we do this, you have to be honest with me. About what you need, about what isn't working, about everything. I can't read your mind, and I can't fix you. But I can be honest with you if you'll be honest with me.
Can you do that?
Marcus thought about the test he'd conducted, about the walls he'd built, about all the ways he'd closed himself off from genuine human connection. Could he be honest? Could he be vulnerable? Looking at Elena's determined face and Lily's hopeful eyes, he found himself nodding. I can try. That's all I can promise, that I'll try. That's all any of us can do, Elena said softly. The moment was interrupted by Patricia's arrival. The estate manager appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene with raised eyebrows. Marcus standing in his study in the middle of the afternoon, Elena and Lily clearly present during work hours, an odd tension in the air. I hope I'm not interrupting, Patricia said carefully. Actually, Marcus said, making a decision, your timing is perfect. Patricia, I'd like to discuss a housing arrangement for Elena and Lily. Could you make an appointment with Andrew Chun at the law firm? I need a residential contract drawn up. Patricia's eyebrows climbed higher. A residential contract. I'll explain everything later.
But yes.
And, Patricia, this is important to me. Can you prioritize it? His estate manager looked between him and Elena, clearly trying to piece together what had transpired. But she was too professional to pry. Of course, Mr. Chen. I'll have something arranged by end of day. After Patricia left, Elena began gathering her things. I should go. I need to process all of this. Mama, we leaving? Lily looked devastated. Just for now, baby. We'll come back on Monday. But what about Daddy? He'll be sad without us. Elena closed her eyes briefly at the persistence of the nickname. Lily, we talked about this. But Marcus surprised them both by crouching down to Lily's level. I'll be okay, he told her seriously. But thank you for worrying about me. That's very kind. Lily threw her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. You can borrow Mr. Hoppy until Monday, she decided, pressing the worn rabbit into his hands. He'll keep you company. Marcus's throat tightened as he accepted the precious gift. Thank you, Lily. I'll take very good care of him. As Elena and Lily left, Marcus stood in his study holding a stuffed rabbit and feeling something he hadn't felt in 3 years, the faint, terrifying flutter of hope. The weekend passed in strange suspension for Marcus. He placed Mr. Hoppy on the credenza in his study, where the worn rabbit seemed to watch him with button eyes that held more wisdom than any stuffed animal should possess. Every time Marcus passed by, he found himself remembering Lily's absolute certainty that he needed comfort, that he could heal. Saturday morning, he called Dr. Morrison. An emergency session, his therapist asked with concern. Marcus, what's happened? Nothing bad, Marcus said, surprising himself with the truth of it. Maybe something good, actually. But I need to talk it through with someone before I convince myself I'm making a terrible mistake. An hour later, he was in Dr. Morrison's office, the same comfortable room where he'd spent so many sessions staring at the abstract painting on the wall while talking about Sarah, about Emma, about the weight of surviving when the people you loved most hadn't. Let me see if I understand correctly, Dr. Morrison said after Marcus explained the situation. Your housekeeper's 2-year-old daughter called you, Daddy. You've confessed to conducting a bizarre test of her mother's integrity, and now you're proposing they move into your home as a way to combat your isolation? Laid out like that, it sounded insane. Yes, Marcus said. And how do you feel about this plan? Terrified. Excited.
Guilty.
Hopeful. Sometimes all at once. Marcus rubbed his face. Is this crazy, Dr. Morrison? Am I using this woman and her child to fill a void that can't be filled? His therapist was quiet for a moment, pen tapping against his notepad. I think that's a valid concern, Marcus. And it's good that you're questioning your motivations. But let me ask you this. What would it mean if they said no? Marcus considered. I'd be disappointed, but I'd understand. And I'd probably need to find another way to start connecting with people again, because you're right, I can't keep living like this. So, this isn't about replacing Emma and Sarah? No, Marcus said firmly. Nothing could replace them. They were my family, my whole world. Lily and Elena, they're not replacements. They're just life. Messy, unexpected, complicated life happening in a house that's been dead for 3 years. And Elena? How do you feel about her specifically? Marcus thought carefully before answering. I respect her. She's strong, intelligent, hardworking. She's raising her daughter alone and doing it well. But if you're asking whether I have romantic feelings, the answer is no. I'm not ready for that. I might never be ready for that. But you trust her? I do. Despite my ridiculous test, or maybe because of it. When she thought I was sleeping, she showed me kindness she didn't have to show. That means something. Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. Marcus, I've been working with you for 2 years now, and this is the first time I've heard you talk about the future with anything besides dread. That alone tells me this is worth exploring. But he held up a hand. You need to be very, very careful about boundaries. These are real people with real needs, not therapy tools. I know.
Do you?
Because from where I'm sitting, there's a significant power imbalance here. You're a billionaire. She's your employee. You're offering her housing, which gives you enormous leverage whether you intend it or not. That's why I'm insisting on a proper contract, Marcus said. Legal protections, clear terms, exit strategies. I don't want her to feel trapped or obligated.
Good.
But Marcus, there's another consideration. Dr. Morrison leaned forward. This little girl, Lily, she's already calling you daddy. What happens when she gets more attached? What happens if this arrangement ends and you've become a father figure to a child who's already lost one father? The question hit Marcus hard. He hadn't fully considered that angle. I don't know, he admitted. You need to know. Before you move forward with this, you need to seriously consider what role you're willing to play in this child's life and what happens if things change. Children aren't resilient because they bounce back easily. They're resilient because they keep trying to attach even after they've been hurt. But that doesn't mean the hurt doesn't matter. Marcus sat with that truth. Lily, with her easy affection and instant trust, deserved better than another adult who might disappear from her life. So, what do I do? He asked. You be honest. With Elena, with Lily in age-appropriate ways, and with yourself. If you're going to do this, you need to commit to being stable and present, even if the arrangement eventually ends. You need to be someone she can count on, not another man who leaves. I can do that, Marcus said. I want to do that. Then maybe, Dr. Morrison said with a slight smile, this isn't such a crazy idea after all. Elena spent the weekend in her cramped 2-bedroom apartment, watching Lily play and trying to make an impossible decision. The contract arrived via courier on Saturday afternoon, a thick document that her friend Miguel, a paralegal, came over to help her review. This is incredibly generous, Miguel said, flipping through pages. Rent-free housing in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city. Utilities included. Separate living space with your own entrance. And look at this clause. If the arrangement ends for any reason other than breach of contract on your part, he's providing a $50,000 relocation allowance. It's too much, Elena said. It's smart, Miguel corrected. He's protecting himself legally, yes, but he's also protecting you. You'd have real tenant rights, Elena. He couldn't just kick you out on a whim. And there's nothing in here that's inappropriate or controlling. You'd maintain your salary, keep your own schedule, have your own space. Honestly, I'm not seeing the downside. The downside is that my daughter is already attached to him, Elena said quietly. You didn't see her, Miguel. She climbed into his lap and called him daddy. What happens when this ends and she's bonded to another man who leaves? Miguel's expression softened. He knew about Lily's father, about the abandonment that had shaped so much of Elena's careful approach to life. What happens if you don't do this? He asked gently. What happens if you keep struggling to make rent, keep juggling childcare, keep living month to month without any security? Is that better for Lily? At least it's honest. At least she knows what we have and what we don't. Elena, look at me. Miguel waited until she met his eyes. You're one of the strongest people I know. You've built a life for you and Lily from nothing, and you've done it with dignity and grace. But you don't have to do it alone just to prove you can. If this man is offering help, and if his motivations seem genuine, why not accept it? Because I'm scared, Elena admitted. I'm scared of owing someone. I'm scared of Lily getting hurt. I'm scared that this is too good to be true, and I'm going to look back and realize I was naive. Or, Miguel said, maybe you'll look back and realize you were brave enough to say yes when life offered you a hand up. Sunday afternoon, Elena took Lily to the park. They sat on the swings, Lily pumping her legs enthusiastically while Elena pushed her higher. Mama, when we go back to the pretty house? Lily asked. Tomorrow, baby. I work there tomorrow. Can I come? We'll see. I miss Mr. Hoppy, Lily said sadly. I hope he's not scared without me. Elena felt her heart squeeze. Of course Lily missed her beloved rabbit. The fact that she'd given it up so readily, offering it to Marcus for his comfort, said everything about her daughter's generous heart. Daddy will take good care of him, Lily said with confidence. Lily, sweetheart, we've talked about this. Mr. Chin isn't. But he could be, Lily insisted, her little face serious. If we live in the pretty house, he could be my daddy. You said people choose their family sometimes. Like Auntie Maria chose you as her sister, even though you didn't have the same mommy. Elena was momentarily speechless. She had said that when explaining her close friendship with Maria to Lily. But she hadn't expected her daughter to apply the logic this way. Baby, it's more complicated than that. Why? And there was the eternal question of childhood. Why? Why couldn't things be simple? Why couldn't a lonely man and a fatherless girl and a struggling single mother just become a family because they needed each other? Because life doesn't work that way, Elena thought. Because fairy tales aren't real. Because billionaires don't actually invite their maids to live with them out of pure altruism. Except maybe sometimes they did. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Elena sat at her tiny kitchen table and reread the contract for the dozenth time. She thought about Marcus's face when he talked about his daughter, who never got to be born. About the empty house that was really a monument to grief. About the way he'd held Lily so carefully, like she was something precious and breakable. She thought about her own struggles, the juggling act that never ended, the constant low-level stress of making ends meet, the guilt of never having enough time to just be with her daughter because she was always working or worrying or trying to stay afloat. And she thought about what Miguel had said, you don't have to do it alone just to prove you can. Elena picked up her phone and typed out a text message before she could second-guess herself. I'd like to discuss the arrangement further. Can we meet tomorrow before my shift starts? The response came within minutes. Of course. 8 a.m. at the house. I'll have breakfast ready. Elena stared at the message for a long moment, then typed. Lily wants to know if Mr. Hoppy is okay. The reply made her smile despite her anxiety. Mr. Hoppy is doing well. He's been keeping me company and reminding me that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is accept help. See you tomorrow, Elena. She fell asleep that night with a mixture of terror and hope churning in her stomach, praying she was making the right choice. Section 6. The Beginning. Monday morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect autumn day that felt like a good omen. Elena dressed carefully, professional but comfortable, and helped Lily into her favorite dress, the one with the sunflowers. "We're going to see Daddy?" Lily asked hopefully. "We're going to see Mr. Chen," Elena corrected gently. "Remember, we talked about this. He's not your daddy, sweet girl. But he's someone who might need friends. Can you be his friend?" Lily considered this seriously. Friends are good too, she decided. Friends give hugs and share snacks and don't leave even when things are hard. "That's right, baby. That's exactly right." They arrived at the house at 7:55 a.m. Elena had her key, but she rang the doorbell instead. This felt different from coming to work. This felt like crossing a threshold into something new and undefined. Marcus opened the door himself, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater rather than his usual business attire. The sight of him dressed down was jarring. He looked younger, more approachable, more human. "Daddy," Lily squealed, launching herself at him. Marcus caught her, though he looked to Elena with uncertainty in his eyes. She gave a small shrug, a gesture that said, "I tried." "Good morning, Lily," Marcus said, carrying her inside. "Mr. Hoppy missed you. He's been very well behaved, but I think he's ready to go home." "Can his home be here?" Lily asked. "Can our home be here?" "That's what your mama and I need to talk about," Marcus said seriously, treating her question with respect. "It's a big decision, and we want to make sure it's the right one for everyone." He led them to the breakfast room, where he'd laid out a spread that was both impressive and clearly chosen with a 2-year-old in mind. Fresh fruit cut into fun shapes, scrambled eggs, toast cut into triangles, and what looked like homemade cinnamon rolls. "I wasn't sure what Lily liked," Marcus admitted, "so I made several options." "You made this?" Elena asked, surprised. "I used to cook," Marcus said. "Before. Sarah and I would make Sunday breakfast together. It was our thing. I haven't done it in years, but this morning I thought, maybe it was time to try again." The admission hung in the air, heavy with meaning. This wasn't just about breakfast. This was about a man trying to remember how to live. They settled Lily at the table with her food, and she hummed happily while eating, Mr. Hoppy propped beside her plate. Elena and Marcus took their coffee to the adjacent sitting area, where they could watch Lily but speak privately. "I read the contract," Elena began. "Multiple times. I had a friend review it. And it's more than fair. More than generous, honestly. But Marcus, I need to understand something."
Why?
"Why are you really doing this?" Marcus took a long moment before answering, staring into his coffee cup as if it held the secrets of the universe. "When Sarah died, he finally said, I died too. Not physically, obviously, but everything that made me who I was, it just stopped. I went through the motions of living. I ran my company, I maintained my properties, I did all the things I was supposed to do. But there was nothing behind it. No joy, no purpose, no real reason for any of it." He looked up at her. "Then your daughter climbed into my lap and told me I needed hugs. And something in me that I thought was permanently broken just cracked open. Not healed, I'm not healed. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt something other than grief. I felt needed.
Seen.
Like maybe there was still some purpose to taking up space in the world." Elena's eyes stung with tears, but she blinked them back. "That's a lot of weight to put on a 2-year-old's shoulders." "I know, which is why I'm putting it on yours instead. Elena, I'm not asking you and Lily to fix me. I'm not asking you to be my replacement family, or my therapy, or my salvation. I'm just asking if maybe we could help each other. You need stability, security, space. I need life in this house, a reason to cook breakfast, a reminder that the world keeps turning even after loss. Maybe we can give each other those things. And when you're ready to move on, when you meet someone, when you want your space back, then we'll handle it like adults," Marcus said. "With honesty, with adequate notice, with respect for what we built together. I can't promise this will last forever. But I can promise I won't abandon you without warning, and I won't hurt Lily if I can help it. She deserves better than that." Elena looked at her daughter, who had finished eating and was now having an elaborate conversation with Mr. Hoppy about the merits of cinnamon rolls versus regular toast. She looked at Marcus, this wounded man who was trying so hard to find his way back to himself. And she looked at the beautiful house around them, spacious and bright, and full of possibility. "I need rules," she said finally. "Clear boundaries. If we do this, we need to know where the lines are." "Agreed. Tell me what you need." "The guest suite is ours. Our private space. You don't enter without invitation." "Absolutely. I maintain my salary and my duties. This doesn't become some weird arrangement where I'm living here as, I don't know, a companion or something. I'm still your housekeeper." "Of course. And Lily comes first. Always. If at any point this arrangement starts to hurt her or confuse her or damage her, we end it. I don't care what the contract says. I wouldn't want it any other way." Elena took a deep breath. "And you have to promise me you'll be honest. If this isn't working for you, if you're feeling suffocated or like we're intruding on your grief, you tell me. We're adults. We can handle hard conversations." "I promise." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on them both. "Mama," Lily called out. "Mr. Hoppy wants to know if we're staying." Elena and Marcus looked at each other, and something passed between them, an understanding, an agreement, a leap of faith. "Yes, baby," Elena called back. "We're staying." Lily's whoop of joy echoed through the house, bringing life to corners that had been silent for far too long. The first week was an adjustment. Marcus helped them move in, which didn't take long, as Elena's apartment had been small and sparsely furnished. The guest suite, by contrast, was spacious and beautiful, with a bedroom for Elena, a smaller room that became Lily's, a full kitchen, a living area, and even a small office nook. "This is bigger than our whole apartment," Elena said, overwhelmed. "It's been empty for 2 years," Marcus replied. "I'm glad it's being used." Lily adapted immediately, with the easy flexibility of childhood. She explored every corner of her new room, delighted by the window seat that overlooked the garden and the built-in bookshelves that Marcus had already stocked with children's books. "You bought books?" Elena asked, touched. "I remembered seeing you read to her once," Marcus admitted. "And I thought, well, every child should have books." The routines they established were careful and courteous. Elena continued her duties during the day, while Lily played in their suite or, occasionally, in the designated playroom Marcus set up in one of the empty bedrooms. They ate their meals separately at first, each family unit maintaining its own space. But gradually things shifted. It started with breakfast. Lily would wander down to the main kitchen in the mornings, following the smell of coffee and whatever Marcus was cooking. He'd started making breakfast every day, relearning recipes he'd forgotten, finding pleasure in the simple act of feeding people. "Can I have some?" Lily would ask, and Marcus would plate up eggs or pancakes or French toast, and before long, Elena would join them, and they'd find themselves eating together. Then came the evening story time. Marcus walked by the guest suite one evening and heard Elena reading to Lily, her voice soft and expressive as she brought characters to life. He paused in the hallway, not intruding but listening, and found himself comforted by the sound of human voices engaged in that ancient ritual of storytelling. The next evening, there was a soft knock on their door. Marcus stood there, looking uncertain. "I heard you reading last night," he said. "And I wondered, I have a book that was going to be Emma's. A first edition of The Velveteen Rabbit. I've never been able to look at it, but I thought maybe Lily would like it." Elena opened the door wider. "Would you like to read it to her?" Marcus looked stunned by the invitation. "I couldn't. Daddy." Lily appeared, grabbing his hand. "Mama reads good stories. You can read with us." And just like that, evening story time became a shared ritual. Marcus would bring a book, Elena would make hot chocolate, and Lily would nestle between them on the couch while they read about brave rabbits and wild things and children who had adventures. One evening, 2 weeks into their new arrangement, Lily fell asleep during the story, her head on Marcus's lap. Elena moved to pick her up, but Marcus stopped her. "Let her sleep for a minute," he said quietly. "If that's okay." They sat in comfortable silence, Marcus's hand resting lightly on Lily's back as she slept, the rise and fall of her breathing a quiet reminder of life's continuation. "Thank you," Marcus said suddenly. "For what?" "For giving me this. Not just the company, but the reminder that life can be gentle, that there can be quiet moments of peace. I'd forgotten what that felt like." Elena looked at this man who'd opened his home to them, who read bedtime stories to her daughter, who was slowly, carefully, learning to live again. "Thank you," she replied, "for giving us a home. Not just the house, but the feeling of being safe, of being wanted." We'd forgotten what that felt like, too. 6 months later, on a sunny April afternoon, Elena found Marcus in Sarah's studio on the 3rd floor. The door that had been closed for 3 years stood open, afternoon light streaming through the windows onto canvases and art supplies that had been gathering dust. Marcus stood in the center of the room, holding a painting of a woman with laughing eyes. "I thought it was time," he said when he heard Elena enter, "to let some light in here. To let her memory be something beautiful instead of something that haunts me." Elena stood beside him, looking at the painting. She was lovely. She was. And I think she'd be glad I'm not locked in grief anymore. She'd want me to live. "Are you living?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "Yes," he said. "Not the life I planned, and maybe not the life I would have chosen, but life nonetheless. Thanks to you and Lily." "We haven't done anything special," Elena protested. "You brought joy back into this house. You brought laughter and breakfast conversations and bedtime stories. You brought your daughter, who decided I needed hugs and just kept giving them until I remembered how to accept them." Marcus turned to face her. "Elena, I don't know how to thank you for that." "You already have," she said simply. "You gave us a home. You've been kind to Lily. You've treated us with respect and dignity. That's more than enough." They stood together in Sarah's studio, two people who'd found each other in the aftermath of loss and built something unexpected, not a replacement for what they'd lost, but something new. Not a fairy tale romance, but something possibly more valuable, a chosen family, built on honesty and kindness and the brave decision to let people in. Downstairs, they could hear Lily singing to herself as she played, her voice high and sweet and utterly unself-conscious. The sound filled the house, chasing away shadows that had lived there too long. "She still calls me Daddy," Marcus said. "I know. If it bothers you." "It doesn't," Marcus interrupted. "Not anymore. I'm not her father, and I'll never try to take that title or the responsibilities it implies. But if she needs someone to read her stories and help her with breakfast and listen to her chatter about her day, if she needs someone to be there, to be steady, to be present, then I can be that. If you'll let me." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, you already are that." He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his face into something warm and open. "Then I guess we're doing okay, aren't we?" "Yeah," Elena agreed. "I guess we are." They went downstairs together to find Lily, who greeted them with the news that Mr. Hoppy had decided they should have ice cream for dinner, and while Marcus was explaining why rabbits weren't the best meal planners, Elena watched them and felt something she hadn't felt in years, the sense that everything, against all odds, was going to be all right. Not perfect, not what any of them had imagined their lives would be, but real and honest and full of possibility. And sometimes, that's the most anyone can ask for, a second chance to build something beautiful from the broken pieces and the courage to say yes when life offers an unexpected hand. In the months and years that followed, they would face challenges and adjustments, moments of doubt, and difficult conversations. But they would face them together, this unlikely family built on loss and choice, and the brave decision to let love in, whatever form it took. And in the end, perhaps that's what family really is. Not the people you're born to, but the people who choose to stay, who show up for breakfast and bedtime stories, who hold space for your grief while teaching you to laugh again. Marcus had set out to test a housekeeper's integrity and discovered instead that sometimes the heart knows things the mind hasn't figured out yet. That a 2-year-old's embrace can heal wounds nothing else could touch. That home isn't a place but a feeling, built slowly through small acts of kindness and the courage to remain open even after loss. And Elena had taken a risk on an arrangement that seemed too good to be true and found something more valuable than security or a beautiful house. She found partnership, understanding, and proof that the right kind of help isn't about owing, but about building something together. As for Lily, she got exactly what she'd always known they all needed: a family. Not the traditional kind, but the real kind. The kind built on love freely given, boundaries respected, and the understanding that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is whisper, "I love you, Daddy," to someone who's forgotten how to hear it. And in that beautiful house that had been a monument to grief, life bloomed again. Messy and imperfect and absolutely, wonderfully real.